Hello, I'm James Bosma from SignAgent, and I hope you're all still awake after that nice smooth jazz. I'm joining you from our office here in Burlington, Ontario, Canada, and I'm happy to welcome all of you to today's SignAgent webinar. We have people tuning in from all over the world today, so depending on where you are, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Typically, our webinars cover new or core functionalities of SignAgent, but today we're going to do a bit of a deeper dive, presenting what our customer success team considers to be the top 10 hidden gems in SignAgent. You may still be evaluating whether SignAgent is for you, or you may be a seasoned SignAgent user. Either way, we hope that today's webinar will give you some good insights into how SignAgent can further improve and streamline your delivery of signage and wayfinding projects. So just a few things I'd like to mention before we get started. We have an hour scheduled for the webinar. It's not going to take that long, probably about a half hour of content and maybe about 15 minutes or so of questions afterward. If you do have questions, big or small, along the way, feel free to ask them using the Q&A feature of Zoom, which you'll find in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. We'll provide answers as we go, and we'll also select some of your questions to answer for the entire group. If we're not able to get to all of your questions today, we will make note of them and we'll follow up with you afterward as well. Today's webinar will be recorded and posted on our website, and we'll also send you a link to the recording via email before the end of the day. At the end of the webinar, we'll provide you with a very brief survey asking you for a bit of feedback about your prior awareness of the features we're presenting and asking you to provide us with your best ideas for future SignAgent webinars. So that's it for the ground rules. So let's get started. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce you to our customer success team. If you're a SignAgent user, chances are you already know all of them personally. Alex Keane works out of Regina, Saskatchewan, and he is the tall, dark, mustachioed owner of the velvet voice behind our training videos. Fun fact about Alex is that he has a black belt in Taekwondo, and I certainly hope he never needs to use it in his success calls. Larissa Perillo is based in Waterdown, Ontario. Larissa is an accomplished soccer player, and recently at a staff event, I got to see her juggle the heck out of a soccer ball. And finally, Adele Allison. Adele is the newest member of SignAgent's customer success team. She's joining us from Pickering, Ontario. And a fun, or at least interesting fact about Adele is that she has been 5'10" since the 5th grade. I am now going to hand the reins over to Larissa to get things started.
Sorry, everyone, just having a couple of technical difficulties at the moment. Just give me 1 second. All right.
We can see your screen now, Larissa.
Thank you for that confirmation. Oh, now I lost my screen. I'm sorry. Give me 1 moment.
Yeah, we're good again.
Okay, perfect. So everyone can see my screen there. All right. Well, sorry for the delay there. Thank you so much for that introduction, James. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We're really looking forward to sharing some of the hidden gems of SignAgent with you today. So let's dive in. For the first hidden gem that we're going to share today, we'd like to begin with our dashboard. As most of us are familiar with, the dashboard is the landing page we view when logging into SignAgent. So this page will hold all and any of the organizations and projects that you are tied to. And today we'd like to focus on the filters that can help specify what you're looking for when searching for projects or organizations. So I'm going to go through a couple of the options we have on this dashboard in terms of filtering for projects and organizations in this drop-down menu. As you see, we have a few options here. We have favorites, active, overdue, active and overdue, and archived. So to begin with favorites, if we're looking to favorite a project, we can simply select this star right here beside the project name. If I select this star, it's going to add the project into our favorites list, and we can simply filter for it by selecting favorites. To remove it from our favorites, we can just select that star again, and now it will be removed, and we can go back to our dashboard, clear those filters, and it will be back in the list with the rest of the projects. We'll let that load. Perfect. So that is our favorites. From there, we'll move into active and overdue. So an active project will be marked in green here. As you can see, all this means is that we have set a start and an end date, and that project is currently still within that time frame. If it is overdue, it's going to be marked as red, as we can see here, which means that we're past that end date that we've set. We can alter that date right from the dashboard if we select the calendar here. We can select a date, we can change it if anything needs to be moved out or pushed back. We can also filter for both active and overdue. As we can see, we have some projects here that don't have a date tied to them. So if we wanted to select active/overdue, we would filter for all projects that do have dates tied to them, whether or not they are within the active state or within the overdue status. And finally, we have archived here. Archived is a tool that we can utilize if we have completed a project, we finished it, and we don't really want it on the list anymore when we enter into SignAgent on our dashboard. We can move a project into the archive state by selecting these 3 dots here, and we can move it into archive. This is great because you don't lose any of that information. Nothing is deleted from the project. It's just simply removed from your dashboard, so it's not within view. You can obtain it at any time. If it's in that archived state, you just filter for archived and you'll be able to find that project. A quick side note is sometimes those projects do accidentally end up in archived. So if you've ever logged into SignAgent looking for a project, you can't find it, of course you can reach out to us at support, but you can also do a quick check in archive just to make sure that it wasn't accidentally moved there. One last little search that we can use on our dashboard or filter is you can filter projects and organizations by user. So for this example, I'll use Alex's account here. If we select that, we are able to see the specific projects that he is tied to in any capacity, whether that be viewer or admin. I'm going to clear that filter so that we can go back into our Hidden Gems project once it loads. Perfect. And we're going to dive into our project and organization now. So the next tool that we are going to discuss is our comparison tool. This tool can be extremely helpful when updating location plans. As we know, we can update a location plan if needed. You can add new location plans to that specific location. And this tool will actually allow you to view the previous plan that was uploaded, the current plan, or the differences at the exact same time. So as you can see, we have on the bottom right corner here, we will have the options for our current, comparison, or previous. So right now we're looking at the current location plan. If I were to select previous, we can look at the one that was uploaded before the one that is uploaded now. And we can also do a comparison view. So if you didn't notice the difference there when we went from previous to, or from current to previous, if I select comparison, we're going to see the highlighted change here. So if I zoom in here, we can now see that on the current plan, there were no rooms here. On the previous plan, there were rooms, and our comparison tool will highlight that for you. So it's really great for any architectural changes that are made on the location plans. It will not show any changes based on the signage or where the placement is of the signage. It's purely for the location plans, but it's great just to show those differences. That is our comparison tool. The next hidden gem is our state color override function. So this feature is a great tool when trying to track and identify signs throughout your project process. The example that we used here is specific to signs that need to be deleted. This is a great way to keep and maintain sign information without actually deleting the signs themselves. As you can see here, our delete state has black assigned to it currently. I'm going to turn off some of our other signs that we have here. Oh, and okay, a quick side note. If you do forget to change the comparison view as I did, you will get a little warning here saying that if you're going to make any changes or you're going to do anything to your location plans, we'll let you know that you're still in a comparison view. So I'm going to change it back to our current view here so that we can continue along. And I'm going to jump back to the state color override. So if I wanted to look at the signs that are meant to be deleted, as we can see, these have taken on that black color because we've overridden the sign type color. So originally our A2 signs down here, our room ID and our room ID alternates will have orange and pink, but as it's in that delete state, they are going to take on that black color. If they're moved out of that state, they will resume to take on their sign type color. So it's just a great way to organize and keep those kind of specified. So that is our state color override function, another great one. And so we're going to jump into zones and inherited fields. So the next hidden gem, as I mentioned, I'm going to speak on is our zones and the ability to inherit fields in a specific zone. So as we may already know, zones serve as a location within a location. If you have a location plan that needs to be broken into different boundaries or different zones, you can simply add these to your location plan. We have set one up here in Hidden Gems that we've titled our bullpen. And as you can see, it's highlighted in blue. I'm going to turn on a couple of our other signs here so that we can have a better view of what's in our bullpen. So as you can see, we do have our signage here, our pink signs or purple signs that are within that zone. So they have inherited this color being in this zone. So what I mean by that is as you can set inherited fields within location plans, you can actually break it down to be even more granular in zones themselves. So if I were to go in and edit this zone, I'm going to right click on the zone and I'm going to go into edit. So as we can see, this part here, our details will show you that we have highlighted our zone in blue. So this is just to help depict it on the map. But if we go even further into inherited field values, we do have any sign within this location. So within level 2, we'll adopt that purple color once they're sitting in that zone. So that's just a great way to help with organization and tracking of your projects. So that's inherited fields within zones. So thank you so much for listening. And I'm now going to hand it off to Adele for the next set of hidden gems.
Thanks, Larissa. Okay, so the 3 hidden gems that I'm going to share with you guys is importing sign types, cloning sign types, and translations. Okay, so just to dive right into importing sign types. If you're linked to multiple organizations, you'll have the ability to import signs from one organization to the other. And this can be done by clicking on the wrench and selecting import sign types. Okay, so once that's selected, you'll now see the organizations that you are linked to. And if you open up the arrow, you'll see the signs that you have, sign types that you have access to import. Just to note that those sign types must be in folders within those organizations in order for you to be able to import them. So if I am to expand an organization, I'll see those folders for those sign types. If I further expand, now I'll see the individual sign types within those folders. So you can select individual sign types that you would like to import, or you can select the whole folder and multiple folders as well. Once you've selected the ones you want to import, you'll simply just click on import sign types. Just a quick note, when importing sign types, the fields will import, but the fonts and visuals will not. Okay, the import can take some time depending on the quantity of sign types that you are importing. They will import one by one in the folder, so you just want to be a little bit patient, but while they're importing, you can work on other things within SignAgent. So using imported sign types is a great tool just to save times if you're using the similar or the same sign types within multiple organizations. The next gem I would like to speak about is the cloning of sign types. So this is a quick one. You can clone a sign type by clicking on that sign and then clicking clone. So when you click on that, click on clone, you're going to get a message here that, well, please wait until the amenities sign is cloned. So while this is cloning, you don't want to make any edits because this can cause issues with the the downloading of the clone. So you want to wait till it is completely cloned to make those edits. And as you see here, we did get our successful notification that the clone has been completed. So now would be a great time to make any edits that you would need to. Okay, and once that's done, you'll see that clone sign type within the folder. And lastly, the last gem I would like to speak about is transitions. So translations. This is one of my favorites. So translation is commonly used to translate text to Braille, but you also have the ability to translate text to visuals. Okay, that could be done by clicking on languages and setting up that language. So in our example, we set up a translation for symbols, and we just assign that language type to visuals instead of text, as you would do for Braille. So if we just go back into our managed message and we're going to filter down for symbols, here you'll see our messages that are assigned to different visuals. So right now we have the men's, and this is the visual for that. If you'd want to make a change, you would just select the visual and select the picture you would want to be a part of that message. Okay, so what that looks like on a sign level. So if I just scroll down here under amenities, so these are the messages that we have translated to visuals. If I were to change this to shared, and I'll save that. If I just scroll back up, you'll see that this shared amenity uses this visual, and it'll also update the artwork accordingly. So those are the 3 hidden gems I have for you today, and Alex is going to let you know of his.
Right. Thanks, Adele. So let's just share my screen here. And what I'm going to start with is talking about tags. These are one of the most flexible ways to sort your signs that are available within the system. And we can really make it anything we want to be. But I'm going to talk about the 3 most common uses that we see for using tags. So if I open up an individual sign here, what we're going to see is under the detail fields, we have a set of tags. Now, in this case, this sign has already been tagged with 2 different things. When you are adding tags to a sign, all you're going to do is click in this box, and you will get a list of tags that have already been created. Or if you want to create a brand new one, you just start typing and you'll hit enter. Now, it'll take a moment for that tag to show up as an available thing to select in other signs, but that is now part of this organization. And as long as a sign is tagged with that, we have the option of adding it to a new one. Now, if we wanted to do that in bulk, all we're going to do is the same process as usual when we're editing multiple signs, where we select a group of them. In this case, we'll edit all 12 of these. And you can see that they all have at least 1 tag in common, and it's the same process where we can drop additional tags in there. So that transfers to talking about the first most common usage, which is to log POs as part of this. So what we can do is, you'll see in this example that we have a project just called master. So if you are either working with a client on an ongoing basis or you're managing your own signage, it can be really helpful to have a list that is basically your database of what's already installed. They're not associated with active projects. We just have them in this master folder, but sometimes we still want to know what job they were originally associated with or when the last time we updated them was. And so that's where we can go. And under the advanced search here, there is the option for has tags. That is where I'm going to do that search for that specific PO. And so we will isolate down and see that in this case, that PO was used to redo the bullpen that Larissa was already showing. So once we've done that, we can also talk about condition. So when we are out on site doing a survey, it can be really helpful to identify signs that may be in disrepair, out of date, or not compliant with the current standard. And so what we can do is basically add a conditional tag to them. So I'm going to do another advanced search, and in this case, we're going to do one for condition needs replacement. We can do a search here. And what we can see is that these are the particular signs that we've identified as needing some kind of replacement. In this case, if we've done a survey, it can be really helpful to scroll down to the bottom and we'll see a picture of what it looks like. Not only is it outside, which is probably a problem, but it's seen better days. So that's a really useful way to identify your signs. Now, the thing to note about that is that these tags are available for search in the web app only. The advanced search in the mobile app needs to be a little lighter for the devices that it runs on. And so this is a really useful way where if you want to do tag-based searches, we would want to do that while we're still on the web and then assign those to a state or have additional methods of searching that won't be available through the mobile app. The final thing that we can do with tags is, let's come in here, and this is typically something that we would do with a larger project, but we can actually denote routes that people are going to be taking. So this is something that is frequently seen with, for example, stadiums, where we have an origin point, and then we have different directions that we need to lead people to. So in this case, it might be like the VIP area is up here, media is down here. And so what we can do is tag these signs with route 1 or route 2 in this case, and you'll see that when I do that narrow down, we get the exact path that is going to be followed by people going down that particular direction. Now, the interesting thing about this is an and search, not an or search. So if I go to, actually, I think I did route 1 initially, let's do route 2. Route 2 is over here. So there are some signs that are shared by both route 1 and route 2. So if I do a search for both of those, it will only pull up signs that have both of those tags on them, not either or. And so we're left with just these first signs before the two paths branch. So with that being the case, we can then move on to talk about scale. So scale is something that a lot of people see initially when they're uploading their plans and may not be certain exactly what that's for. So I'm going to edit location 3 here. And what we can see is we've assigned it a scale down here that is this architectural scale. It also has a scale factor beside it. What that means is this is like a 1 to 128 scale drawing. If your architectural or engineering scales are not present in our drop-down list, there are converters online that you can use to find the exact scale factor and just punch that in manually when you're first uploading your location plans, and that will work as well. So with this set, what this allows us to do is essentially say that scale markers, if we check this off, are going to retain their actual real-life size in relation to the plan, rather than, as we saw when we're over here on this plan, these markers, as I scroll out, grow bigger so that they maintain their size. When we have a scaled plan with scaled markers, as we zoom in, that marker gets larger because it has a real life size that we're attributing to it. So the way to set that up is we're going to come over to edit the sign type. And under the markers tab, you're probably very used to seeing what floor marker you're using, what scale we're setting it to. There's actually a scaled marker option where we can put in the exact dimensions of the sign so that it displays correctly. This is typically used for large like wall murals or banners where we want to actually see how it relates to the walls that we're using. If we're not using anything like that, what we're going to want to do instead is just keep that scale blank. Okay, so let's talk next about references. They come up in 3 different ways that we'll dive into here. And let's start with referencing for renumbering. So a reference is a way to give SignAgent a command rather than just input text. So I'm going to take, let's say, this group of signs here. I've got 1 through 4, but I actually, the client has renamed or redone their numbering system partway through the project. And so rather than going through and renumbering all of these, what I can do is use a reference field, which is denoted by using curly brackets. So in that curly bracket, I'm going to type in 101. And now this is telling SignAgent, we're not just putting in 101, you're going to start counting at 101. So we're going to take all 4 signs start renumbering. And when I save that, we're going to see that that number is going to change, not just for that first one, but it will consecutively renumber them for the remaining. It's important to note that this is a pretty simple logic. If you had 101A and 101B, the system is not going to be able to figure out when to apply that lettering. It's typically just used for the numbers. So now that we've got that at a number level, let's drop down into an actual sign and use those reference fields to pull information from one field to another. So I'm going to look at one of these signs here, and oh, I actually have the information all ready to go. We have the room number and the room name, but for the Braille on this sign, we want those two to be combined. And so the problem with that is we can't translate room number and we can't translate room name independently. We want it to be one piece of Braille. And so for that, for translating, we need to pull these two pieces of information together so that we can translate it as a whole. So the way that I'm going to do that is, again, using reference fields. In this case, I'm simply going to type in the name of the field that I want to pull the information from. Now, you'll see that there is an underscore there. That is instead of a space, just because we're dealing with basically computers. It's just like templating. It's the back-end name for the field. So I'm going to say I want to pull in the information for room number. And then I also want to pull in the information for room name. And when I save that, we're going to see that it does pull them together for this sign in particular, or if we're editing multiple signs, it'll do that same process for each one of them. And now there's something to translate for the Braille all as one, and it shows up in our template. The important thing to note about this is that when we're doing this, it is a snapshot in time. This is not a live link. So if I were to come in here and say, this is 210-2S, that information does not get updated in the room name number, right? We captured that information once and it's not permanently linked. So if we are using this technique or anything like this in our project, it's a good idea to come in at the end of the project and before we go to production, redo that process just to make sure we've captured all of the most recent up-to-date data, but that shouldn't take you too long because we can do this with 300 to 400 signs at a time. Okay, so what we'll move on to next is the use of references in templating. So not only can we use it to pull information from a field into another field, we can actually use that in a template. And so if I come up to one of these room signs, what we're going to see is down in that bottom left corner, we've got some information. And that is pulling in live information about what the ID of this sign is, as well as in this case, the last date that it was edited. So I did that just today, so that's showing up here. What that means is if we were to, for example, change this number to 181, that sign ID is going to shift as well. Or if we were to change the type of sign it was, and the new sign template also has that identification, it will catalog that sign type there. So with that set up, let's actually take a look at what that looks like from a templating side of things. If I were to open this in Illustrator, it works a little bit differently than all of our other templating options. What we're going to see is I have this isolated as its own sticker layer, just so that when I export this from SignAgent, since we retain the same layer structure that the template was set up in, we're going to see that the stickers are all on their own, so they're easy to isolate. And if we wanted to strip down to just that and run it through a printer, that would be really helpful. It'll be in the same order that any other document that we produce from SignAgent would be. So it's really easy to match the details that we've got in SignAgent to the real world. Now, what we're going to see here is that this is actually just a piece of text. This is a regular piece of text with the curly brackets used. There's no bounding box, there's no formatting, there's no nothing other than just a piece of text. And what that means is that it is super easy to pull in this information and it will start writing here in the font and color that you've selected and work your way towards the right. We can't do any additional formatting with this. We can't set a bounding box so it drops to a second line. We can't align it to anything else. This is just basically reference data that we are pulling in, and so it tends not to get used in sign artwork too much. Okay, so that covers all 10 of the things that we were looking to show you. I know that there are some open questions right now, and so we'd love to dive into those and be able to address them. Larissa, would you let me know which ones I should be looking at?
I certainly can. We're just looking at a couple. We have a couple that just came in about a little bit about kerning the text the way that you were just talking about. So I think that one's from Joshua. If you want to take a look at that one.
For sure. That's a great question. So if we're looking at this templating, both for the sign ID here, as well as any other field in SignAgent, kerning is unfortunately the one thing that we can't do pre-export out of SignAgent. The reason is just a limitation of SVGs. SVGs will actually, instead of including kerning information, they will just break, for example, computer lab here, they would just break this into two separate words, essentially. And so what that means is that if we want to put in kerning to our signs, what we want to do is let the system auto-generate them, and then we can use our fabrication script to really quickly add kerning back to any number of signs. We can certainly follow up with you with a little bit more detail around that, but that's the best process for that. I saw another question about Braille being created in Spanish. So it's not something I'm super knowledgeable about. However, as long as it is still maintaining, the ADA standards, the automatic translations should be the same. And so we should be able to still use that automatic translation. But what I would say is that there are some additional symbols that may or may not be present in the Braille font that you're using that can cause issues with translation. So it's always a good idea to have a real human basically do a proofread with what the system generates, because sometimes we won't get special characters. Another question was about assigning one sign to multiple levels. So currently, that's not something that's a possibility. When I was talking about those large mural signs where we want to have that scaling be present, it's not something where we can have that exist on multiple locations at once. The way to do that would be to either duplicate it on both locations and make a note of that, or again, just have the scale be accurate so that it extends off the page. And any other questions for me to answer here, Larissa?
Can we take a look at Kevin's talking about renumbering the message field?
Absolutely. Gotcha. So yes, we can renumber. That same renumbering can be done in the numbers for the questions here, as well as, for example, in this room number. So if I come in and that's a great example, we renumber partway through, we don't want to update all of this information. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to start at 0, 1, 2, 3 now, because turns out we've gone over and we need that fourth digit. When I do that, the thing to note again is that simple room numbers are better. If it's a full number, that works perfectly. If we have, again, room 123B, that I think is going to cause some issues where the system won't be able to necessarily interpret what the next number should be. So now when we go into this, we're going to see that each of these signs is going to have their own, there we go, we've got 0, 1, 2, 5 now present for that sign. Anything else?
Great. Just to clarify for that answer that Alex just spoke on, the original question, because I understand not everyone can see the questions, was if you can renumber the message field. For example, if the client changes room numbers halfway through the project. So like renumbering, just to clarify that. And then we do have another question back about scaling, Alex, asking, with scaling, will SignAgent automatically use the SVG size?
So SignAgent won't use the SVG size of a marker. So if you've uploaded a custom marker, we still need to manually set the size for this. So when I come in here, if we, let's say, drew this custom marker as 3 feet across, I would still need to come in and put that width within the sign. All right, so I think we're coming up on time here. So we really appreciate the time from everybody. If your question hasn't been answered, don't worry. We're going to be following up with individual messages where we can send some resources your way, as well as we'll send some additional resources out to everybody as part of this call. Just as a quick reminder, as we end here, you're going to get a quick survey. It would be really helpful for us if you could fill that out, basically letting us know what you already knew about with these features, as well as any suggestions that you might have for future artwork. And I'll turn it over to James to close us out.
Well, thank you so much, Alex, Larissa, and Adele. It's a really good sign when people stay for the whole, not a single person has dropped off during the whole webinar, so that's great. So I hope I can maintain that over the next half a minute while I close things out. So thanks again to all of you for showing us these hidden gems. Also, a big shout out to Tanya, my colleague on the SignAgent marketing team, who has helped to orchestrate the logistics of the webinar today. And of course, thanks to all of you who have joined us. As promised, today's recording will be shared and posted, and we'll also follow up with you directly about any questions we weren't able to get to, as well as posting all the questions and answers on the webpage that we post the video on. Just a couple of quick reminders before you all go. Remember that if you need any help with additional paid project assistance, David Batoni is available to act as an extra set of hands if you need some of that help with project work. Another note that you may have seen in our pre-webinar sign show, many of the SignAgent team will be attending SEGD's annual conference, which goes from August 23rd to 26th. Alex and I will both be there, and if you do plan to attend, please also plan to say hello or feel free to connect with either of us ahead of time if you'd like to meet up in person. And finally, we'd love to know from you which of the features that were presented today you were already aware that you were already aware of prior to the webinar. So if you can just take 1 minute after we close this meeting out just to fill out that 10 question, 11 question form, that would be great. You can also add in any ideas you have for future webinars, and we will certainly take that into account. So that is it for today. On behalf of the entire SignAgent team, thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you again next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.